No flip cam anymore, man. We are high tech. All right, guys. How are we doing?
Good.
Are we more confused than ever? I'm about to unconfuse. I promise. So, how many of you guys got the single leg squat cleared things up? Did it clear things up for anybody? Anybody more confused? Okay. I don't blame you. Think of the single leg squat this way. It's just a way of taking it one step further. If somebody can't do the single leg squat for whatever reason, good. You don't have to do it. What I'm looking for is, okay, the knees wobbled. I'm not really sure what that means. Did they bow in, they bow out? Good, have them do a single leg squat. You'll find out. If their knees are gonna bow in, they'll bow in. Right? They have an asymmetrical weight shift. Them hip hiking on one side might give you an indication of what's going on there. Which side is the tighter side? Maybe you get them on one leg, this side hikes up, this side falls down. It gives us some legitimate information. You guys with me there? If you don't get anything extra from it, don't do it. And like I said before, and this is something maybe I should have explained right off the bat, my fault again. Look joint per joint. All I'm looking for you guys to see is signs and joint actions, and you're about to see why here in a second. I don't care about muscles at this point. All I want to see is signs and joint actions. I'm going to look at the ankle, what is the ankle doing? I'm going to look at the knee, what is the knee doing? I'm going to look at the hip, what is the hip doing? Look at the shoulder, what is the shoulder doing? That's it. And each assessment is going to get me a little closer to finding out which joint is doing what compensation. You guys with me there? So, overhead squat, look joint per joint, do your modifications to isolate which joint is worse, do your single leg squat to clear up anything that you think is on the fence. Maybe a problem, maybe not. You guys good? You guys ready to figure out how to solve for all this stuff? It's not that bad. I think this is a compensation pattern. They have really nice and obvious ones in your charts. I know for most of you guys it wasn't this obvious. But you guys get that that would be a compensation, right? So, the next thing we have to do is go, okay, what joints are involved in this compensation? What joints do you think are involved? Number one, what compensation is this? Feet turnout, good. So what joints are involved in feet turnout? Ankle and maybe the knee. What do you got? How many of you guys think knee? Does your ankle actually turn out? No. Where's most of that turning out coming from? The knee. Actually the knee. How many of you guys knew that you had 60 degrees of rotation at the knee? Everybody told you it was a hinge joint, right? That it just goes forward and back? Liars. It's not a perfect hinge joint. In fact, you guys want to do a little experiment? You guys want to find out how weird this really is? We'll palpate. You guys know what to palpate means, right? No. To touch somebody in a professional manner. Alright, so what I want you guys to do is run your hands up your leg, your shin bone specifically. If you run your fingers up your shin bone, you'll notice there's a bump about 3 or 4 inches below your knee. That is called your tibial tuberosity. It's where your patellar tendon attaches. But meanwhile, it's just a nice landmark for you guys to palpate. So I want you to put one finger on there. I want you to make sure your knee is in a flexed position, hopefully to like 90 degrees. What I want you guys to do is dorsiflex your ankle as high as you can, so I know that your ankle is all locked up. Once you do that, you got your finger and your tibial tuberosity, your dorsiflexed. I want you to turn your foot in and turn your foot out. Can you feel your tibial tuberosity sliding under your fingers? All that rotation is coming from your tibia on your knee. Crazy, huh? How many of you guys knew that your knee rotated before this class? How many of you guys didn't know that? You literally didn't know that. Well, now you know. I taught you something, you can leave now. No, so we got two joints here. We got ankle and knee. So if feet turn out, what is my knee doing? What joint action? Turning out, which is what joint action? External rotation. Ankle's a little complicated. The reason our feet turn out is because the ankle can't do something. Does anybody know what that can't is? I'm going to turn out because I can't get my tibia forward. Right? So I want to walk. My tibia won't move forward for me, so I'm just going to move my foot out. Right? So that I can keep my stride length the same length. Or at least try. Can you guys see how that would work? Because otherwise, if I lacked dorsiflexion, tibia moving forward, and I didn't turn out, I would end up like this. Right? I'd end up with really short strides because I couldn't keep my foot planted. As soon as I tried to go into any dorsiflexion, my foot would come up and I'd just step forward again. But do people really walk like that? I mean, I guess somewhere somebody's probably walking like that. But what do most people do? They compensate. They want to keep a relatively same stride length, so they do this and turn out. By turning out, they shorten that lever, right? And now they don't need as much dorsiflexion. How many of you guys see people do that? Yeah, a lot of people. A lot of people. So, it's a lack of dorsiflexion that generally causes me to turn out, which would be the same as having too much what? Plantar flexion. You know, all of a sudden I started talking about joint actions and everybody got really quiet. All right, now, here's where the math happens. If you can get this far, this is actually the most difficult part. If you can figure out what joint actions have occurred to cause somebody to compensate, you could actually look the rest up. If you can see this, if you can see that this is this, you're in good shape. How many of you guys can see that? Man, I was hoping at least 50% of you would raise your hands. How many of you guys can see that this is this? Everybody got that? Everybody putting those two together? Because this is, guys, for the rest of the day, this is all we're going to do, so you guys know. I mean, I'm going to show you how to correct it, but this is what we're going to do. So what are my knee external rotators? Biceps femoris. Well, let's back up and do a little kinesiology lesson. If it's going to turn my knee outward, where do we expect these muscles to attach? On the outside of my knee, right? So what attaches here? Does that help? Biceps femoris. I heard somebody say that. Somebody said IT band, but IT band isn't a muscle. TFL uses the IT band as a tendon. Guys, there's no such thing as a tight IT band. No such thing. It's not a muscle. It's not contractile tissue. It's a tendon. The muscle that's pulling on it is tight. You guys with me? And the muscle that pulls on your IT band is your TFL. What's the actual name of this muscle? Tensor fasciae lata. Right? Huh? Cup of coffee? Good. Biceps femoris, TFL, IT band. Any other lateral rotators of the knee? Lateral gastroc. Lateral gastroc is part of what? Calves. Okay, good. And what are my plantar flexors, my big plantar flexors? You just said it. Yeah, soleus gastroc, also known as my calves. It is not uncommon in these dysfunctions, guys, that if you write it out like this, you end up with the same muscles in a couple different places. That's good. That just means they're really, really likely to be tight. Like in this dysfunction, you think the lateral gastroc is pretty likely to be tight? Yeah, a little bit, right? If you guys got this far, you know your short muscles. That's it. All these solutions tables that you see in all this NASM stuff, and it looks like voodoo, you're like, how did they figure that out? That's all they did. There you go. You guys have this in your handout, right? Can you now see how we got there? If you get the logic, you can do this with any dysfunction you see, no matter how complicated. You just have to break it down into its joint actions, and then start listing the muscles. How am I going to find the long muscles? Huh? How do you think I'm going to, if this labeling what joint actions caused that compensation gets me the short muscles, how am I going to find the long muscles? The opposing muscles. So instead of external rotation, I'm going to do internal rotation. Instead of ankle plantar flexion, I'm going to look for my ankle dorsiflexors. What are my knee internal rotators?